You're on the air with Florenza, your podcast destination for authentic conversations with a twist. So, grab your favorite drink, get comfy, and join me on this unique literary journey. Cheers! From Harlem's notorious queen pen to America's earliest female serial killers, Mary Kay unearths the fierce, the forgotten, and the fearless women who changed history, whether for better or for worse. Put your hands together and welcome Mary Kay to the show. Thank you so much, Mary Kay, for joining me on this episode of On the Air with Florenza, where we are going to talk about your newest release, Madam Queen. And we're also going to sneak in a couple questions based on your other book, America's First Female Serial Killer, because I'm all about that killer life.
Me too. Thank you so much for having me. I'm already having so much fun.
I know. So before we get started, we are going to toast. And I have not yet started drinking, although we've been giddy like I have.
Me neither. We just got there on our own.
Ladies and gentlemen, you are in for a treat. I feel it already. So I have a little, this is called Reggae Red.
Okay.
So it's a fun wine. What do you have going on? It looks like
I have a Negroni. I did a cocktail which has nothing but alcohols in it. So, because I felt like it was in keeping with the spirit of the time. Because, in Prohibition, they did cocktails because the liquor was so bad. Like they were drinking paint thinner that they had to invent a way to like get it down. So that's why we have cocktails. Now they're just fun. Anyway, I got a Negroni.
So tell me what's in there, because like my favorite drink is tequila, vodka, gin, and rum one with a little bit of ice and a squeeze of lime.
Okay.
So, but what's in that?
Negroni or this Negroni, there are variations. I have equal parts gin, sweet vermouth, and Campari. And I didn't have a twist because I ate my orange earlier like an idiot. So stupid.
The juice, well, the juice is there first. The juice is waiting for the rest of the drink.
That's right. It's already in there. I had to eat them in increments.
Well, here you go, my friend. Cheers.
Cheers. Thank you.
Cheers.
Thank you so much for having me.
Oh, that reggae is a little good. We're going to dive into asking questions, as I said, both about Madam Queen and first female serial killers.
Okay.
But before we do, I told a little bit about you and Madam Queen offline before we came on air. But introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about what prompted, because I read it in the author's notes, which thank you for having those there, because that was like really informative. But tell the listeners and the viewers what they are to expect from reading Madam Queen and why this was so important for you to write.
Okay. I went to the Museum of the American Gangster in New York, which is sadly no longer existing. And I saw Madam Queen's photo on the wall, and I wanted to know everything there was to know about her because I love gangster stories, like more than I should, like more than I should admit to. But I never feel reflected in them because they're all, not all, but mostly, almost all men and mostly all white passing men. If they're not white, they're like Sicilian or, like nowadays we would consider them white. So I never felt like that was true though. Like I never felt that there were no women in the game. And I was proved correct when I did a deep dive about Stephanie Sinclair. And I really believe, yes, Stephanie Sinclair. Look at her, y'all. Isn't she amazing? Look at that dress and that hat.
That sit
I
is
know.
what all lady.
I
She
know.
looks like
And her
she shoots you,
shoes.
but Yeah.
Yeah, or have someone shoot you. Like if
Yes.
she wouldn't do it herself, she'd get it done. Where was I?
You were in the museum and you only saw men and men who are white, and you didn't see any reflection of anyone else.
Right. So I asked the docent afterward, like, I need to know everything you know about her. And she said, I just told you everything I know. And I really believe the reason why she's not a household name is because she was so good at what she did that she knew, maybe if you are running an illegal operation, maybe you don't tell everybody about it. Maybe you
Yeah.
don't keep it in writing. Maybe you don't make a ton of very powerful enemies who can have you killed at the drop of a hat. So I really think that that is why she's in there. And then or why she ran the game while we don't know about her. And I learned as well that she is kind of the criminal godmother of Frank Lucas by
Hmm.
way of Bumpy Johnson. So, like, we know Frank Lucas. Like, we watched the movie, or I watched the movie, and then we know Bumpy Johnson a little bit
Right.
now as well. But she met him when I think he was 15 because he had gotten out of juvie, and she was like, he's mean and that's what I need. And
Uh-huh.
she recruited him like immediately to be her heavy, which he was. And he was not a big man. Like he
Yeah.
was 5'8", and he was just mean. I don't even think he was like an angry man. I think he just had that demon kind of
Mhm.
in him. And she saw it and she was like, "Yeah, I can't, I don't, I need that kind of protection and I don't have it." And then I also think, I think the reason that most Americans enjoy gangster stories is because it is the American dream
Yes.
succeeding against all odds,
Yeah.
like all odds, including the law.
Yep.
So I think that's why we enjoy it. And in her story, I really also think, and I have evidence to prove this, that if it was a different era, she would have
Yes.
just been a very successful businesswoman, like Rihanna style, like that
Yes.
successful of a businesswoman and a creative. And I know this because now her numbers racket is the New York State lottery. Like
Yes.
it is this is a 1-to-1. Like she had a great idea and they didn't know how to tax it, basically, is why it was illegal.
Yep.
Um, and then they were like, oh, we don't have to tax it, we'll just own it. And
Yep.
then that'll work. So that's why I thought her story was important. And that's also why I thought that now she would want people to know it. She
Yeah.
would not have wanted people to know when it was happening. Or, she wants some people to know because, you have to be a friend
Yes.
to get that kind of access, I think. And probably she didn't tell everything to anyone because that's sort of unsafe.
Yes. And there was I love stories like 48 hours, 60 minutes, and I forget which one it was. I think it was a 48 hour though, where it was an elderly lady who had killed, must have been like 4, 6 of her husbands, right? And they caught her, the last one she dumped in a well behind the
In a
house.
well.
And some little kids running around where they shouldn't have, like, came upon it, and eventually it traced to her. Well, she's an older lady, right? Like, I'm
Mm-hmm.
61 and she was like older than me. And she's sitting there and the police ask her, how is it that you've gotten away with this for 40 years? Because she has killed all of her husbands and lovers consistently, but was never caught. And she simply said, you don't tell anyone. Well, damn.
Simple as that.
Simple as that.
Simple as that.
And I think Madam Queen knew who to tell
Yeah.
and who to not. And she completely surrounded herself by people that she could trust. And we know that there were some who betrayed her.
Mhm.
But even in that, she still picked them because of certain traits. Now, Stephanie St. Clair was known for her elegance and power. If she were alive today, which modern day mogul do you think she'd be compared to?
Rihanna,
Yeah,
I think.
yeah,
Because she has so many verticals and also she's super, super rich and still doing good stuff.
yep,
And I don't think there are many people who do that.
yeah,
Also, Rihanna kind of had like a bad girl Riri phase. So it worked, right? It worked
yes,
for us. We love her. So I think that she's the closest
Yeah, I
comparison,
think so too.
and still smoking hot, like just crushing it in every direction. So
Yes.
yeah.
So let's bounce over to America's first female serial killer.
Okay.
Jane Toppin claimed her goal was to kill more people than any man or woman who ever lived. Do you think her actions were driven more by ambition or just sheer madness?
Mm. I think it was a slippery slope for her. I think she was a very angry person, and rightfully so. Like she was treated so badly for like her whole life. And she was a really precocious child too. So if you take a type A kid and you beat them all the time and tell them they're not good enough, that they're going to use their powers for evil. Like
Hmm.
that's what happens if you don't channel it in the right direction. And there are plenty of people who are geniuses who did not kill 30
Yes.
people. So she must have also had that in her to be activated. I think that there's both a nature and nurture situation. But I think she was very angry. And then once she did it a few times out of convenience, I think,
Hmm.
or spite, um, she realized like, oh, I've been invisible my whole life, and I'm going to be invisible for this too, so I can get away with it and just do whatever I want. So I think in the beginning it was rage, and then spite for people being ungrateful for her helping them as a nurse. Which, I mean, nursing is such hard work now. Like imagine it at the turn of the century when it was
Yeah.
mostly custodial, and you had
Yeah.
like so many patients. Um, so I think it started that way, and then I think it became unhinged the older she got, which is sometimes how mental illness escalates
Yeah.
into just being more severe, and then also crimes escalate too. That's why if you see like a peeping tom situation, don't
They
let that
start.
go. That's
Mm-mm.
how it starts.
That's
That's
how it
literally how
starts.
it starts. Yeah.
Yeah. With that bedwetting and walking on your tippy
Yep.
toes are my
Mm-hmm.
giveaway. So
Mm-hmm.
that's my giveaway. Okay. Now, both your books delve into the lives of women who defy societal norms. What drives you to these complex female figures?
Great question. I think what drove me to these two specifically is like I wanted to read a book about them. Like I learned who they were, and I had just a little bit of information, and I was like, oh, that's interesting. Like how, first of all, I've never heard of either of these women, and I am the target audience for like a hidden history about a powerful woman. So there must be a book, that I just haven't read. And both times it was like not there were books about them, let me say, like Harold Schechter wrote a really good one about Jane, and Shirley Stewart wrote, I believe, and there's um, another woman as well whose name is escaping me, but they wrote about Madam Queen or Stephanie Sinclair. So they had been written about, but they didn't have a story, if that makes sense. Like it was
Yes.
very much like reading journalism, like
Yeah.
just the facts, ma'am. Like here's what we know. And while I do appreciate that, and that is very hard work, it's just not what I wanted to read.
Yeah.
So, and then Toni Morrison said, if you want to read a book and it hasn't been written, you got to do it. So
It's yours.
that's what she told me personally.
She did. She
Imagine, oh
told
my
me
god.
that too, girl. I was there. L- Okay. I know I've got questions, but I want to say, Madam Queen reading this was like absolutely you sitting across the table from me, us with a drink, and you spilling the tea. I felt like you were leaning in saying, girl,
Yes, that's what I wanted. Thank you so much for saying that. That's the best compliment you could have given me. Thank you. Because I wanted it to read like it was true, but I also wanted it to read like, but listen, like this is the story, like it's not just, here's what happened, but can you believe that this is what happened? So that's what
I
I wanted.
I
Thank you.
felt the parts and you're very clear with this is fact. But
Good.
I
Okay.
love the parts where I felt like you were saying, you see what had happened was.
Yes. Okay, good. I'm really glad that those are very distinct because I never want it to come across that like what had happened was what actually happened. If that makes
Yes.
sense. Like I want
Yes.
you to know like this is how we're telling it. Like this is the story we're sticking to. So thank you again for letting me know that that was apparent because that was very important to me to not misrepresent anything.
It was apparent from the very first word, like you really felt like you were about to get the tea.
Thank you.
And I love the inclusion of the actual articles that Stephanie wrote to the newspaper, right? And you're reading this, and I'm telling my husband, I was like, dude,
Yeah, I know.
she called these jokers out. She said, not only am I going to tell what you did, I'm going to give your name. I'm
Mhm.
going to give your badge number. I'm going to tell who your supervisor is. I'm going to tell the lies that you told in court. I'm going to tell not only that you lied, the lie that you told, and the truth that you know to be true. And I'm going to sit here, smoke my cigarette, and see what you're going to do about it.
Yep. And I'm going to tell, I have written records about how much I bribed you. And so they're going to hear about that too. Yeah, I love that. And I also just, I love that she never seemed surprised by anyone behaving that way. She was like,
Mhm.
yeah, of course you did. Of course you're terrible. Like, and of course I was ready for that. So, yeah,
And I
I
don't
like
want
her a
to
lot.
spoil it, but the only one that I really wanted her to put her foot down,
I
like
already know what you're going
was
to say.
yes. So we're gonna leave that with the
He was the hardest character to write. We're talking
yes.
about Sophie,
Mm-hmm.
right? Yes.
Mm-hmm.
It does not make any sense to me. I mean, who among us has never been tricked by a charismatic, handsome man? First of all,
Yes.
like I don't blame her for that. I've been there for sure, many a time. But for her to do it, it's like, no, don't let
I
love
know.
get
I
you. Like, don't
know.
do
I was
that.
gonna throw the book. I was like, I was
Mm,
expecting any moment that and we're not gonna spoil it.
right.
For the readers, when you get to that part that we are talking about, let us know what
Yes,
your
please.
emotions were. Because
Yes,
I
please
can
let
tell
us
you
know.
what my facial expressions tell you what mine are. So,
He really was so hard. There were so many times where I was just like looking at it and be like, what is so great about him? I don't understand. And then I was like, well, he must just be like very, very hot. And then I went and looked at his picture and I was like, a
no,
little
he's not.
disappointed, like
Yeah,
not that he's ugly or anything, and not that looks
yeah.
should really matter in who you end up with, but
When you're that powerful, as women, we expect that Achilles heel is gonna be like a damn good looking or
yeah,
performing Achilles heel, right?
yeah,
Like
right,
something,
right. He
baby, make
did.
it worth the fall.
I know, right? You should be being able to look back as you're going down and be like, you know what? I'm okay with my
Yeah,
decisions. Yeah, I
so
just,
worth it. So worth it.
oh man. Y'all, I hope that you read the book, but I also, when you get there, if you have any insight about just,
Let us know.
yeah, please let me know.
Because I'm a Gemini and I could it's not it's not in my genetic code. Like,
That means very grounded, right? Like
yes,
very practical. Yeah. Okay. I'm a Leo, and that just means I'm gonna fly off the handle at everything, I think.
yeah,
So,
yeah,
which is
yeah.
true.
Oh, I'm gonna fly off too, and then I'm gonna sit there and act like I did nothing. So wait, maybe that's Jane's birthday. I don't know. We need to
I
check
can't
into that.
remember what it was. I remember looking into it, but I wonder if they didn't have the date right or something because it's not sticking out in my head
Yeah.
about when she was born. I can't remember.
Which talking about
Mm,
birthdays and such, I thought it was brilliant the way that you started Madam Queen telling that very first snafu or whatever happened with her on the boat with the age thing,
thank
setting the groundwork for this is an example of how strategic she moves. If it's happenstance or whatever, once it happened, she owned it, right? Like it became her truth and how she operated in that.
Thank you. I That was one of the things that stood out to me when I was doing my very first like Google search about her. Is like she was either 13 or 23. And I was like, what do you
Wait, what?
mean? That's a huge difference at that age. Like you can't tell a 13-year-old from a 23-year-old.
Listen, apparently
Yeah,
you could not.
apparently you could not. Or like There could have been like a language barrier
Yep.
thing where someone said the wrong thing or wrote down the wrong thing. Also, I mean, I tried to go look at the ledgers and I found the ledger where it was allegedly composed, but there's no standardized spelling. Like it's very hard to it's very
Hmm.
hard to read their handwriting. So maybe it's that, but I think the most likely version is she was like, let me just see if this works.
Yep.
Throw some at the wall, see if it
Yep.
sticks.
Yes, which would show why the mother knew that she would make it, either knew
Mhm.
that she would make it or die trying,
Mhm.
right? Like that was that. So, if you could have dinner with either Stephanie St. Clair or Jane Topin,
Oh,
whom would you choose and what would you ask her?
oh, Stephanie, for sure. I just want to make sure I live to the end of it. And, like I don't want to have a sip of water and then be sent to my death.
Yeah.
So definitely Stephanie. Also, like Stephanie was, I mean, this is just like the dinner itself. I'll go into like why I want to talk to her more
Uh-huh.
too. But she was she she knew how to host. Like
Yeah.
she was very posh. Her
Yes.
apartment, the way she describes it, like, and we're in New York in the
Yes.
20s and she had closets. Like,
She had closets.
yeah. And I that building actually 409 Edgecombe is still standing in Harlem. And I like kind of walked in behind someone just to check it
Uh-huh.
out. And it is really cool. It's really cool. The original tiling seems like it's still there, like penny
The
tiles
penny tile,
in the
I know.
lobby. Yeah.
Yes.
So first of all, would love to hang out in that apartment. um, and I also just think that she would be a fascinating person to talk to because she was so smart. I mean, both she and Jane Topin were very smart women, but um, Stephanie's smart in a way that I'm not,
Yeah.
because specifically because she was a math person,
Yeah.
and somehow also a people person. And
Yes.
I don't think that's a combination that often
Hmm.
um, grows at the same rate, I
Hmm.
guess is what I want to
Hmm.
say. Like you have to be sort of twice gifted to have that. But so I would be interested, and I don't know that she would tell me, of course, but I
Yeah.
would be interested to be like, so what was your method about like your timing of hitting all of these jackpots at the same
Yeah.
time?
Yeah.
Um, and how does like explain it to me like I'm five. Like how does the law of large numbers work? Like
Yeah.
I don't need to know how to do it. I just want to know how you know how
Uh-huh.
to do it. So I think that would be really cool. I think that I would just probably ask her like, what did you do today? Like, where were you at? Who were you there with? What did you wear? What did you eat? What did you drink? Who
Uh-huh.
did you see and not speak to?
Oh, yes.
Um, yeah, because I just feel like she knew everyone. Like even before she met them, she knew them and knew what they were about. Like when she actually wrote this down. Like I didn't make this up. Where she in her limousine, right, taking her in New York City, like 8/10 of a mile, which is a
Yes. I know.
huge flex,
Insane.
right?
Tell me you're rich without telling me you're rich.
Exactly. She saw Marvel Cook, who was like an aspiring journalist at the local paper, knew who she was, and was like, pull over, get in, let me tell you what he did.
Yes.
And then she did it. And so like Marvel must have known who she was too, or she ain't gonna be getting in the back of a limousine
Yeah.
with a stranger, you know?
Uh-huh.
Um, so I just feel like she would have amazing stories. And I would do my best to say like nothing at all because I
Just
just want to listen.
now, since your book has published, um, what do you think the person that lives in her old apartment is going to think about you when they start getting all these random people ringing that doorbell to try to get inside?
I couldn't figure out the exact apartment that she had. I don't know that they're still divided the same way. I know that I think she was in the corner on the top, but I don't know which corner. And I don't know if they're still, you know,
The
how they
same.
repurpose it. Like they'll tear
Yes.
walls down and like at combine units and stuff. Um, but I do know that you have to call up, and it looks like there's a desk for a doorman there. So hopefully they have a couple of
I
um,
wonder if James is still there.
maybe. He is a composite character. Like he existed. Like she refers to her doorman several times,
Uh-huh.
but I just know that she would have really been close
Yeah.
with him, like professionally. So
Yeah, because he's that first layer of protection, right?
right,
Like
He literally, yeah,
Yes,
he was
he
the first
was.
layer. Um,
Nice.
so hopefully they don't get too mad at me. Hopefully they get in touch and they're like, look, and then we can talk, and then I can go have dinner in that apartment. That's what I mean, dreaming big. I hope.
Listen, let me know when you're there. Just call me and say,
Okay,
girl,
I will. I'll get you on FaceTime and be like, look, they have our same screen.
they
Wouldn't
have
that
it.
be amazing?
Yes. So, how do you balance factual accuracy with narrative storytelling in a true crime writing such as this?
I think that is the question. For me, I want everything to be true. So I do as much research as I possibly can. Like I mentioned earlier, my preliminary Google search, right? And then you read all of the results.
Yeah.
And then you look at their sources. And then you go to the books and then you look at their sources. So a lot of my research for her, for this book, especially, came from adjacent works like Bumpy Johnson's
Yeah.
wife had a memoir where she talked about Stephanie Sinclair, and this was like late in life too. So she, had no reason to or I guess hold anything back really because she was
Yeah.
like El de Hombre.
Uh-huh.
Um, but so we had that. We had Dutch Schultz's lawyer eventually turned on the combination, and he had an expose where he talked about her and her relationship to Dutch Schultz. Um, so we had some adjacent research like that. And I mean, I really ran it all the way through until I just could not find anymore. And of course, she was a slippery person, so she's
Yeah.
not going to have a whole lot written down unless she wrote it down. And
Yeah.
then she's going to have a motive, and the motive is very clear. Like when
Yeah.
she's writing those open letters to the police, she's like, I sent this letter to him last week, and I haven't heard a damn thing. Oh, sorry, I don't know if I'm
No,
allowed
listen,
to
of
swear on
course.
here.
Yes, of course.
Okay, so yeah, so I think that it was, first of all, anything that can be true should be true.
Yes.
I'm not just adding things in there for to be fun. Long answer, less long.
Yeah.
Everything that can be fact checked should check
Yeah.
out. And then when I had to make some educated guesses, just saying this is an educated guess, and here's
Yeah.
why I think that it
Yeah.
is the most likely. But most importantly, just being very straight up, saying I'm going to tell you the story the way I think it happened. And I've done
Uh-huh.
a lot of research and I hope you trust me, but I'm going to tell you when you should doubt me, just in case. Because honestly, I feel like best case scenario is someone reads this and they're like, you left something out. Let me tell you this.
Exactly.
So if you're that person listening right now,
Call
come
me
find
up.
me. Yeah, call me. Um, yeah. So I hope that I did right by her because I think that that's how she would want it told. Like I don't think she would want anybody to completely fictionalize her life. I also don't think she would necessarily want anybody to completely
Tell it
do a
either.
biography. Yeah. Like
Yeah.
I don't want anybody to do a biography on me. Like, don't tell everybody,
Yeah.
like that's stuff
Because
I don't want anybody to hear.
mm-hmm, mm-hmm. What lessons do you feel, even without knowing her,
Mhm.
or were her story to be more well known? What lessons do you think women today can learn from her?
Oh, that's a good question. Um, I mean, I think there's a lot to learn from her. When she saw an opportunity, she went for it, and she went with her whole chest. Like
Yes.
when she saw that that the playing the numbers wasn't really gambling, kind of like dice isn't really gambling. Not if you
Yeah.
know what you're doing, right?
Yeah.
Um, and then she saw the stock market and was like, "That's probably not really gambling either." And she asked a couple educated questions and was like, "Oh no, it is gambling because there's no security in
Yeah.
it, like that it's going to pay out if you win." And then she was proven correct,
Yeah.
very
Yeah.
quickly
Yeah.
with the crash. To educate yourself because that's not no, it's not necessarily going to come to you if you don't. Um, and then taking opportunities. And then also, yeah, she was a gangster, kinda, but she also was a huge philanthropist.
Yes.
And so were several of her contemporaries, most notably Casper Holstein, who, oh my gosh, when he finally got arrested for real, the write up, right, talking about, and this is in the book, but they just painted him out like a true saint.
Yeah.
Like the newspaper was like, "Can you believe they arrested him for this little thing he did illegally, and he's done all of the like they
All of
just
this.
listed all of his not charities, but donations and stuff
Hmm.
like that. So I think that's important too. Like once you get on top, don't forget, um, don't forget that other people need the help that you probably needed. Um, that, and then I also think that it's an important part of Black history as well.
Yes.
Because I mean, why didn't I know about her? You know, like I learned about the Harlem Renaissance, but I didn't know
Yes.
about any of the culture that existed outside of the very corrupt legal system at the
Yep.
time. Granted, I am not from New York, so that could I might have learned it had I grown up there. But
Yes.
so I think it's very hopeful as well.
Yes. And that's, too, in terms of the life that she lived. On one regard, she didn't want to be known
Right.
for a lot of what she was doing. But the flip side of that is now that we know about her, thankfully, you and others will continue to write about her. What's next for you?
Ooh, good question. I have some things in the works. I feel like with writing projects, and you probably know this as well, but it's like it never is happening until it has happened.
Yes.
So I have a research project in the works, and it's like almost 400 years old. So the records are hard to
Ooh.
access. It's takes place during the Scottish witch trials in the 1660s. So trying to get in there and do that. And speaking of like indecipherable records, like they're in English, but it's like I
Who's
can't read
English?
anything, right? No standard spelling, and it's Scots English, which is already very different. So that's what I'm working on the most right now. Before I start putting all of my weight into promoting this book, which comes out
Yes.
June 3rd. But that's what I am working on now. I love finding. Um, I love the hidden women of our
Yeah.
histories, and not just women, but the underdogs.
Yeah.
That I think they're important to learn about and fun.
Fun stuff. Where
Yeah.
are the listeners able to become a fan of everything that you are doing?
Ooh, my platform that I'm most active on is Instagram because that's kind of when I stopped developing social media brain.
Uh-huh.
So that's the one that I'm on the most. And my email is just my name as well. I have an author site if you're interested in other works that I've written because I sometimes will find an interesting topic and there's not enough for like a full book on it, but I
Uh-huh.
still want to write about it. So there's some similar hidden histories writing in there. Yeah, but those are the main two places in Instagram and my author site, which is just my name, Mary Kay McBrayer. And then the book, you can buy it from wherever you want. Any way to buy the book or read the book is a good way to buy the book or read the book.
Yes.
Yes.
Now, we've come to the part of our show that I call last call. It is
Okay.
simply some rapid fire questions. So we're going to take a sip.
Okay. So these are short answer.
Yes.
Okay, got it.
Whatever pops in your mind first. And I'm trying to think. Okay, let me get them
Okay.
ready. Are you ready?
I don't know. I think so.
These are easy.
Okay.
These are easy.
Are you going to answer it too?
No,
Okay, just
just you.
me. All right.
Yes. Coffee or tea?
Coffee.
Mm-hmm. Early bird or night owl?
Night owl.
Favorite writing snack?
Oh, anything that I can just get a little of and keep feeding myself.
Now, are you a sweet or a salty?
Both. I like them together. I can just keep going. If it's like a chocolate covered pretzel or like peanut M&M, I
Uh-huh.
can just both at the same time.
I have a friend, they make popcorn, like really buttery, salty
Yes.
popcorn, and they throw M&Ms in it.
Yes, exactly. Yes.
That does it for you, doesn't
It's
it?
the best.
Oh, you didn't know you needed
I know.
popcorn and M&Ms until you
Hmm.
had popcorn and M&Ms.
Exactly.
Most surprising fact that you've uncovered?
Mm. Okay. That the reason that Sufi's plane crashed is it ran out of gas. I know.
Intentional or accidental? We don't know.
I don't know, but when speaking of hard to write, I was like, oh my gosh, like it's so sad, right? Because someone died. And also, dude, what?
Yes.
Yeah,
Well, damn.
I know.
What's your preferred writing music?
I actually am not good at writing with music on because I end up listening, especially if there's words or if I'm too familiar with it.
That makes sense. What's your biggest writing challenge?
Hmm. Probably staying on track because it's so easy to go down the rabbit hole
Hmm.
of any one little thing. Like, for example, what kind of fur she's wearing in those photos. Like,
But
just
you
for
came
example.
up with a brilliant reason for your answer. I'm not
Thank
going to
you.
give the answer,
Okay.
but you came up with a brilliant reason for why you chose the one you chose, and I would have chosen that one as well.
Thank you. That is very validating
Yes,
for me. So
seriously.
thank you.
Like, seriously. Last one. What is your dream vacation spot?
Mm, dream vacation spot. I have, it's on my bucket list to ride on the Orient Express, like the whole way.
Oh,
It's so expensive. Like it's, whew. Yeah, I don't know about that. I
well,
had,
you're going to sell a lot of books so that that can happen.
thank you. I actually I was like, I want to do all of this, but I want to be able to like stay in the places. Because you're in your train, you just keep going.
Yeah,
You're on the train for like 7 nights, and that's a down payment on a house. Like it
yeah,
is insane how
yeah.
much that luxury train costs. So I had before I got pregnant, I had like mapped it out and was like doing budget trains and stuff, and I called it the Stankonia Express.
Stankonia.
Because we were in Atlanta, so we didn't get to do it yet, but I think that would be my dream vacation.
That is such a great dream. Well,
Thank
thank
you.
you so much for joining us. This has been fun.
Thank you so much for having me. I had such a good time.
And this wraps up another episode of On the Air with Florenza. You may follow me on all social media platforms under Florenza Lee or via my website at florenza.org. Until next time, cheers.